So we'll start off with just some general introduction questions. So the first question I'll address to you, Jade. What does chemical engineering mean to you?
First of all, I think you all should get a prize for staying this late. So before I start, I'm going to have full disclosure. So I've been working with the Boeing company for 28 years. Most of I should say 1/3 of my career are associated with chemical engineering, and the rest of them are not. So, but with that being said, I think chemical engineer can conquer the world, okay? I mean, so, because what I think about is, you just look at what I've been doing. I have managed a variety of technology teams, and they are outside the chemical engineering discipline. But it's the skill set, and it's the thinking process, and it's I would say the discipline that you acquire throughout the College of Engineering that taught you and prepare you doing whatever you need to do. And I really resonate with Cynthia presentation earlier. It's more like you work really hard at your current job and the opportunities will come. And also I had an opportunity earlier this year, the first 6 months of the year, I actually run a factory. So if you think about an engineer runs the factory, and I did it. And again, that's all with the discipline and the training that you got in engineering. So with that, you can do anything you want.
I would just echo what you said about thinking and the skill set. That's really what chemical engineering means to me. It really taught me how to think and how to solve problems. And basically, as you say, you can apply that skill set to just about any and every field that we do.
Actually, Cynthia, I'm going to direct the next question to you. How do you think the world sees chemical engineering?
Currently, I would say as a scarce commodity. We use chemical engineers in every industry, doing all kinds of jobs. At our BP Cherry Point facility, we use chemical engineers. We start them off typically at the bachelor's level as process engineers, and then they work as feeder patterns for all the other roles in the refinery, including the commercial space. So that just tells you how much we utilize them. But when you look at the pipeline and the number of people who are retiring and those who are going into traditional engineering fields, it's a very weak pipeline. So that's why I would say a scarce commodity right now.
Yeah, and I would definitely echo that. At the Boeing company, think about like environmental engineering. We hire chemical engineers as well, and also chemical engineer we use for like process engineering, like process manufacturing type of troubleshooting. So lots of skill set, we hire in as a chemical engineer, but you can really diverge once you get into a company. Again, it's kind of echo what I just said earlier.
So we're going to start our first lightning round questions. So these are going to be really quick, short phrases or just one-word answers. So I'll direct this to you, Cynthia. What was your favorite undergrad chemie course?
Oh, that's easy. Thermodynamics. I love thermal. Some laugh, but I really did love thermal.
I would say heat transfer.
Yeah. All right. What is your most memorable academic failure from undergrad?
That's easy. Musical survey.
I would say I failed by not attending enough lectures outside of whatever I was studying. There's just so much that goes on at a university, and you really never get this opportunity ever again in life to just sit on a lecture on maybe music theory or not, and just think about things that you would normally not think about. And I do regret not taking advantage of that. And some of the speakers that come through, you get renowned people coming through universities and not taking the time out of my day to actually attend those.
I want to add on to that one. It's really important to know how you learn. You know, early on, I didn't know most of my learning coming from visual, because I'm like 70% visual and 30% only audio. And that's why when I take the musical survey, I was like, they all sound the same, you know. But it's really important to really understand yourself.
All right. And what is the best piece of advice you ever received? I'll start this with Jade.
I think somebody heard me say that before. When you get an angry email, assume good intent. Because I get mad a lot about email that's coming through. Assume good intent.
I would say it's enjoy the journey. I was told that, I've been told that a couple times, and I think it's because I'm always on the go and moving, but just taking time to just really enjoy the journey and just being present in the moment.
Right, we have one more question actually that came from the audience for the lightning round. How many hours per week do you work?
You go first.
This week, it's a little insane. Because there's a lot going on. There are weeks where literally it's not a 40-hour week. It's more like 60 hours. And that's mainly because of my role in working between 2 continents. So it's quite a bit. But then there are other times where I have not yet seen it in this role, but I aspire that, you know, perhaps I'll work 25 hours. But, you know, wishful thinking, you know.
And you heard about like work smart, not hard. That's wrong, that's a myth. Work smart, but work hard. But to me, it's, I changed a lot of jobs, so it all depends on what jobs you have. The new job that I have, the first 6 months, I work a lot. And then after that, you kind of stabilize. So it's 40 hours is the minute.
All right, so we're going to get into our first subtopic, and this general overarching topic is the career aspect of chemical engineering. So I'll direct the first question to you, Cynthia. Was chemical engineering a natural fit for you, or did it take time for you to enjoy the field?
It was definitely a natural fit for me, as I shared earlier. As someone who grew up loving calculus, physics, and chemistry, it was just the right thing for me because I didn't want to just study one of those in a silo, but together, and chemical engineering offered that for me.
It was a natural fit in the beginning, and then it just morphed into something else.
All right, next question. Would you say that finding the right career path is a continual process? And I'm going to start with you.
Absolutely, just look at me. But really, it's, I would advise you, don't leave any job because you don't like it. I mean, to me, I actually leave job when I was at a peak, you know, because I monitor my personal learning, my career development, and when I feel like I'm getting bored, you know, that's about the time that you want to start looking what else is out there. Because I have a lot of time people ask me, why do you want to leave? You do so well in this job. But that's not how I look at, you know, your career path. So just, you know, something to consider.
And as both of us said earlier, chemical engineers are used in a variety of different industries, in a variety of different roles. So because of that, I truly believe it's a continuum or just a continuous process. So I would say don't limit yourself to traditional chemical engineering. You just don't know what it is that you could evolve into doing.
I'll start this one off with Jade. In your opinion, what are the most important things to consider while planning for a career in chemical engineering?
I feel I'm saying the same thing over and over again. So, the soft skills are just as important as the technical skill, if not even more important. And when you enter into industry, you can go for a technical path. I know at Boeing, there's two different paths. You can go for a technical path, or you can go for management path. Actually, the first the first 15 years of my career, I didn't want to go to management at all. And I just decided overnight, basically switch to management path, and I just like it ever since. But with that being said, soft skill, I talk about communication, collaboration, project management, problem solving. Those are all really critical skills to have once you enter the workforce.
I would say when you're considering your career in chemical engineering, it's just really being true to yourself. And that self is going to evolve. I'm not who I was when I was 18, nor who I was when I was 20 or 25 or 30 or even 35 more recently. You evolve and your passions change, so what you do in your career will likely change if you're looking for full satisfaction. So I would say just be open-minded to evolving and making choices based on that evolution.
All right, thank you both. That concludes our first subtopic round. And so now we're going to move into live audience questions. And it looks like our first question from the audience is, it seems that leadership can mean a lot of meetings. So how do you make sure your meetings are productive? And Cynthia, I'll throw this on you first.
That's why I work 60 hours. Because your 40 traditional hours gets taken up by everyone wanting to get on your calendar. But I would say one of the ways in which to help that is laying it out clearly. What's the objective of this meeting? If we're not coming to a decision or some type of action or shaping of something, let's handle this through email or brief. Like, so many meetings can be handled electronically these days because there's no real action taking place if we're not having a discussion to move things. So I would say, I have not done this yet, but I'm moving towards it, is literally when people are requesting meetings, what's the objective and what's the context? And basically the objective helps me to understand what it is that they'd like to get out of the meeting. And if you can't answer that, then you're not ready to have the meeting. So let's take back some of those 60 hours.
I totally agree. And also, I know you probably have a lot of one-on-one, because I got lots of one-on-one requests from my team or even people outside my team. I always make sure that I have a structured questions ready for them and kind of guide them toward the conversation. Because sometimes they want one-on-one, but they don't really know what they're looking for. So there's lots of inside-out coaching that we do. Is mainly asking a lot of probing questions, and they kind of guide themselves throughout the whole process. But yeah, just have a clear mission, clear agenda. That's definitely the most important thing.
So we have another live audience question. How do you sell yourself to a company when you have no prior skills in that field or job? And I'll direct this one to Jade to start.
Frankly, when I hire people now, I look more for the attributes. So it's not like, and I don't care about GPA, but do your homework anyway. So, but what I'm saying is the attributes, they are just so important to me. Like good people skill, good communication skill, and if you use a lot of I in the interview, be cautious, But what I'm saying is, industry, like me now, I don't look for all that the technical skill, because I know you graduated from UW chemical engineering department, you got it, right? And the rest of it is hard. So
I would say there really isn't anyone without any experiences. Usually you have done something. It may have not been an industrial internship. You may have worked in a lab. You may have volunteered someplace. So I would coach that person to find what was their impact in whatever it is that they did. And translating that and being able to communicate that to me. Because if you can take volunteering at a nursing home and explain to me how you made a difference or what skills you gained, that's valuable. Being able to do that, because like Jade mentioned, if your education gives you the foundation that you need to actually contribute. So, and I'm not gonna lie, it is competitive out there. So you want to find as many things that you could possibly extract value from. So that's why I always tell students, you know, you might not have the internships or work experiences that you would desire, but you can work in a research lab. Professors are always looking for undergraduate students, free labor, I promise you. I was once there.
I'm laughing because I totally agree.
So, but it's valuable experience that you can get that you can then speak to at an interview or a job prospect or whatever it is, a graduate school interview. So you just want to look for opportunities which you can extract value from or show how you contribute.
Most of the companies now, they have structured interview, and you can actually prepare for structured interview really well. And we should probably talk on the side, you know, we can help with the typical structured interview that we have at the company.
Thank you both. Now it's time to move into our subtopic 2, answering the question, what is chemical engineering? So our first question in that topic is, do you think the chemical engineering field is getting too broad? I'll jump this to Cynthia first.
Thank you.
So I don't think it's getting too broad. By nature, what is chemical engineering? It's a very quantitative field, and it's the building blocks of chemical engineering: calculus, physics, mathematics, thermodynamics, all things that we can use and apply in different ways. I had friends who went off to med school. I had friends who went off to various graduate programs. I had friends who worked in oil and gas, friends who worked in pharmaceuticals, friends who worked in, or classmates I should say, who worked in consumer goods and products, or friends who went and worked in food science companies like Kraft or Frito-Lay. So we all had the same education, but we took those skills and applied them differently. And I think that's the beauty of chemical engineering, that it is that broad.
I totally agree, and actually I don't think it's broad enough. Because I become a generalist, so it's like you know a little bit of everything, and that's why, you know, I emphasize a lot on the skill set and the communication skill.
Right. The next question I'll direct to Jade. What fields within chemical engineering do you think we will see the most growth in the future?
It's gonna be a tough one for me. Like I said, you know, I haven't done really engineering for a long time, but anytime you can connect, you know, I came from manufacturing. You know, if you can connect the dots with manufacturing from the chemical engineering side, that's, you know, that's kind of, I'm biased, right? But I find sometimes people had a hard time making the connection. They're really good students. By the way, I'm mediocre students, okay? I know my professor is sitting back there, but you know, I got GPA probably 3.4, 3.0 or 3.2, around that range when I graduated. But how can you manage a technology team like NDT, non-destructive evaluation, and I manage a team that is assembly, automation. I knew nothing about composite. But you know what I'm saying is, if you can really connect the dots with whatever industry that you're in with your training, then that's more power to you.
I think we'll see more growth in the interface of chemical engineering with other disciplines, because some of the grand challenges or global challenges that we're facing, it's not going to be solved by one discipline alone. So if we think about sustainability and some of the issues we have with plastics and disposing of them, especially single-use plastics, it's not just the chemical engineering department, a chemical engineering problem. We need to come together across disciplines. So I see more multidisciplinary teams, and you actually see a blurring of the lines in terms of what was traditionally chemical engineering versus maybe mechanical engineering, just throwing something out and just seeing the interface working.
Along the notes of a little little bit of what you said. We actually have a live audience question that I think is pretty relevant. How will environmental sustainability and chemical engineering evolve going forward?
Well, one, we know it needs to evolve. So going forward, we see lots of changes. We see companies, and you see it even now in Seattle, you don't have single-use plastics anywhere really, not even with straws or bags and shopping. So that's now and moving into the future. But we have a huge remediation issue to address. When we look at the oceans and just how much stuff we've put in there, and addressing that and its effect on the ecosystems that live there. So I think that's a huge area for us. It's not necessarily, part of our sustainable future is actually remediating some of our past. And when you look at our landfills and things of that sort, with what they're filled, we have no space to dispose of these things. So finding creative ways to do that. And not to put a plug in for BP, but something that was very interesting. We've actually partnered with some cities in looking at taking municipal waste and turning it into fuel. Pretty clever and just really interesting and exciting.
Jade did half, okay.
All right, and with that, I think we'll start into our next subtopic. And this topic is the integration of data science and automation into chemical engineering. So the first question I'll direct to you, Jade. With the huge shift towards data science and computer automated industry in mind, what do you see as the role chemies will play in these new approaches?
I think I'll use one of my capstone project with UW as an example. The business unit that I'm in now, we have a chemical process tank line. We have actually like a dozen of chemical process tank line, and how we replenish or dump the tank is not by the consumption. It's actually like every 3 months we'll dump the tank because we don't have data, right? We don't have data to correlate when it's time that you actually should dump the tank, and that's part of the data analytic, data science, that we got to have enough information so we can do a little bit predictive. We may not have to dump the tank once every 6 months. So I look at it as there's few of those utilization, and we need to do more in the chemical engineering area.
When I look at data science or think about data science, and again, the skill sets that we get as chemical engineers, I think we're one of the disciplines that are best positioned to infiltrate the data science field. Because if you think about it, you need people who write the algorithms, you need people who understand which logic sequences you need to determine whether or not you need to dump the tank or not. You need someone who understands analysis, and yes, when you do get a trend or something, whatever the output is, understanding what you do with that and how to think about that and how to use that appropriately. And I think that's what our chemical engineering education gives us. I think the interface of chemical engineering and data science is a very strong one where I can see lots of synergies being had. And I think you are well positioned to go into that field and make some good impact.
Thank you both. We're actually getting a lot of live audience questions. Kind of switching topics a little bit here, so I think that's all right. We're going to move forward with a few of those. So the first question that came up is, women can be disproportionately asked to take on service in academia. Do you see that in industry, and if so, what is your advice for this?
Yes, you see it in industry. You will be asked to be the one to take notes, and I clearly state I will not be taking notes. And I will at times seriously just call on a man to take notes. That you have to be willing to confront some of those gender inequality issues just there and use it as a teachable moment. Diversity and inclusion is a really popular buzzword and topic right now within industry and academia as well. And I think part of that is changing some of these roles and changing thought, because if you can change the way someone thinks, you can change their behavior. So working around that. So yes, just as you see. And honestly, I'm not anti-service. I do lots of service, and it's important, and that's a passion of mine. But just understanding, I'm not going to relegate that to a certain type of person, making sure that it's open to all.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, that's, I don't experience that the way I work. I mean, I always have a hard time speaking about, hey, do I get treated differently because I'm a woman engineer? I just didn't really quite experience that all the time that I work for Boeing. And it could be because I'm pretty outspoken. And also I'm pretty loud, so people are always a little bit shocked. I remember one time I was, have conference call regularly with a group, a team, for like over a year, and finally they met me and they were shocked. They said, we thought you were like 6'2", Anyway.
All right, so moving on to the next live audience question. I'll direct this to you, Jade. Do you experience burnout from work, and how do you work through that situation?
I would say throughout my entire 28 years at Boeing, I probably only lose sleep like one night, and that's because people issue. That's not even a work issue. You really have to understand your body, yourself, how to take care of yourself. There are times I do work. I mean, I'm just gonna be really honest, like 80 hours a week. But that's not continuously. That's because we had a crisis, I had to jump in. But on the average, I would say right now it's 40 to 50. It's actually really good now, but I'm about to move because I just feel like this job is becoming too easy for me. So to me is, you know what you can take. And when people look at you and say, oh, you work 60 hours, poor you. I mean, 60 hours is like, that's nothing for me, And some of you guys, I mean, you're graduate students, and you work very hard too. I mean, that's, so to me is don't have the typical 40 hours thing. I mean, you can work 30 hours sometimes and you still get burned out, so.
And I would add around that, it's really about work-life choices. This whole work-life balance thing is just really weird, but work-life choices, I think. Because at one point you may make the choice to work more, or you may make the choice not to work more. And you just have to be happy with your choices. I know right now I'm feeling like I need a break. I'm a little burnt out. I'm trying to convince Robert to go to New Zealand for Christmas, but we'll see if he obliges. But, and that's what I do. I enjoy time with family and friends, so when I do feel overworked and burnt out, I unplug and just recharge, either with loved ones or, just by myself and doing something that relaxes me.
I want to add, most of my engineers work 40 hours a week, okay? So it all depends on what career you chose.
All right, our last live audience question. How do you manage your personal life with your career life?
I think that's kind of similar to the previous question. Like I said, not all the job I work 40 hours or 60 hours, and balance is an interesting thing. They sometimes you feel balanced, sometimes you're not, but overall, I have to say, overall 28 years, I feel pretty balanced. There's up and down.
Yeah, I think just very similar. And then just having supportive people in your lives, just people who come along with you on the journey and being there, even if it's just bringing you tea when you're working late hours in the night.
And I don't travel, so that means a lot.
All right, with that, we're going to head into our last lightning round, so we'll be closing our conversation. And again, these are short, one phrase, couple of word answers. So the first question I'll direct to you, Jade. What is a personal habit that contributes to your success?
I'm very mission focused. But early on in my career, I had lots of dead bodies, right? When you get to your mission, and I'm better toward the end, because you want to achieve your target mission, and there's no dead bodies to it.
I would say I have a bias for action. I'm constantly being told to sit still by someone, but I would say my bias for action and results.
All right, Cynthia, I'll direct this next question back to you. What is the next frontier of chemical engineering research that is exciting to you?
For me, I would say climate change, given the industry that I'm in. It's really exciting. I'm looking forward to us stepping up and leading the conversation around this and this transition that we see in the energy sector. It's quite exciting, and I'm glad I'm at this place now.
You're going to say data science, that's the obvious.
All right, and our final question is, what inspires you?
I'm actually going to echo something you said earlier. Sometimes fears actually inspires me. I mean, that's kind of weird. It's like, I know that's kind of strange. But when I get a new assignment, the first 3 months I was like, I'm going to get fired, and so just fear of failures. But apart from that, what inspires me is when I see a team, you know where they can go, and you know where they are at now, and you have some tactical plan to close the gap, to get them, to see them get to where they go, because of your encouragement and all that, that's super inspiring for me.
I would echo some of that as well, and I would sum it up by saying being able to make a positive impact, either for the delivery of a project or in someone's life, and that truly inspires me.
Passing is kind of fun.
All right, well, everyone, please help me in thanking both Cynthia and Jade for stepping forward.